Royal Caribbean cutting short the Quantum of the Seas cruise to Norway and returning to Singapore at 8 a.m. this morning after an 83-year-old Singaporean male passenger on board tested positive for COVID-19. Well, this passenger had reported to the onboard medical center with diarrhea and underwent a mandatory PCR test as part of the onboard protocols. He had also taken a PCR test prior to boarding and tested negative then. Well, as you can see here, an ambulance departed Marina Bay Cruise Center at around 2:20 p.m. this afternoon. Personnel in blue PPE assisting a passenger in white PPE. So it's not clear if this is the passenger who tested positive for COVID-19, but the other passengers were told at 3 p.m. by the ship's captain that the patient was no longer on board. While everyone else has remained on the ship since it docked this morning. The ship has isolated all guests and crew who had close contact with this passenger. All of them had tested negative for the coronavirus, and there are around 1,600 guests and around 1,100 crew members. And according to one passenger, the chances of them coming into contact with a COVID-19 patient are low.
Because of the precautions that they have taken, and there's out of like 2,000 plus people that's on board, maybe even 3,000 plus, including all the staff, I think that the chances are pretty low that we have come across this passenger or even be in long contact. So I'm not that worried. But even if even we get disease, it's not something that we can complain because we are aware of the risks. We took the risk in consideration when we signed up for this cruise, and we didn't say that it's impossible for us to get COVID. But I'm not overly worried. I'm not worried at all, to be honest. Yeah, we're just playing it cool and just waiting for further updates.
Well, my colleagues are here with the latest on the ground. Travel correspondent Clara Locke is a passenger on board the Quantum of the Seas, and multimedia correspondent Yosem Jo joins us live from Marina Bay Cruise Center. So Clara, let's start with you. We last spoke about 6 hours ago at 11:30 a.m. What's the latest that you're hearing for the guests and crew on board?
So the last update we got from the captain was at 3 o'clock, and that was when we were told that the passenger has disembarked from the ship, but the rest of us are still on board. So we're still waiting for more news, which will come during the 7 p.m. update. And there are some questions that we have, such as how long it's going to take to complete some of the procedures that need to take place before we can disembark. So, for example, how long it's going to take to sanitize the ship, and when the contact tracing will all be finalized. And we were also told that we will be taking rapid antigen tests when we disembark prior to leaving the cruise terminal. So as of right now, it's still up in the air as to whether all this is going to happen today, whether passengers can go home tonight, or if some of that is going to spill over into tomorrow.
I see. Well, Sam Jo, over to you. What can you tell us about the preparations at the cruise center for when these passengers eventually disembark?
Right, Olivia. So as you can see, I'm just right in front of the ship. So Clara is somewhere in there, and I'm right in front of it. This is off the camera shot, but right beside this ship is the Marina Bay Cruise Center. We're not allowed to film there, but there has been a flurry of activity all afternoon. We've seen people in personal protective equipment moving around, especially on the third level. We understand that's where all of them do their pre-swabbing before they board any of these cruises. Of these cruises are, of course, part of the Safe Cruise pilot program that's been going on for a while now. And yes, and speaking of the ambulance case, we actually, in this ramp right behind me, I beg your pardon, we saw an ambulance just slightly after 2 p.m. arrive, and there were some people in blue PPEs as well, like waiting around the ambulance. And finally, we spotted what seemed like a man in a white PPE suit, complete with shoe covers, being helped onto the ambulance, and they left shortly after 2:20 p.m. So we believe that is the patient in question, the 83-year-old man, confirmed case. And like Clara said, we've all been waiting here all afternoon. The magic time that everyone's been talking about is 6 p.m. Because that's when they hope to fully embark everyone on the Genting World Dream. But we're actually not sure if that can be done so quickly. And of course, even when that's done, the debarking process might take quite a while, because don't forget there are close to over 2,800 people, including guests, passengers, and crew members on board the Quantum of the Seas.
Right. So you mentioned the Genting World Dream cruise that is, docked right next to this Royal Caribbean cruise. So, Sam Joe, did you manage to speak to any of those passengers on board the Genting cruise? Are they worried about what's happening on the Royal Caribbean cruise as they embark on their own journey?
Right, you would think they would be worried, Olivia, but I actually did speak to some of them. Again, we're not allowed to film in there, but we spoke to some of them. A lot of them were arriving from as early as like noon to 1 p.m. They came with their luggages, their sun hats, their sunglasses, of course, all in vacation, full vacation attire, because I guess for many of us, this is the closest you can get to an end-of-year holiday. This year because of COVID. And a lot of them still seem very excited. We spoke to them, I asked quite a few of them. They're not phased. I mean, that's why they actually have showed up, right? Some of them were still, most of them are actually aware of what's going on, about the case on the Quantum of the Seas, but most of them remain unfazed. One guy actually compared going on a cruise to shopping at a mall. He said that, essentially, he's not going overseas per se. He's not going to another country. It's an extended version of Singapore. So he still feels very safe. And he added that, because this particular ship, most of the ships on this program, in fact, all of the ships on this program, they will be operating at half their capacity. So Quantum of the Seas, for instance, the maximum capacity normally would be about 4,000 people. But as of right now, we only have like 2,000 over people on board. So I guess this has put a lot of people's minds at ease, especially those who are, ready to board their cruise. Of course, it remains to be seen whether this will affect the take-up rate for future cruises.
Right, of course. Well, Clara, just to round up our conversation, you've been stuck in your cabin for, since, last night before you went to sleep. So how are you feeling right now, especially looking forward to, maybe the possibility of disembarking tonight?
I think I would rather not get my hopes up, so I'm just trying to stay entertained. And actually, there's a lot to do, right? Because when we're in our daily lives, we are like, oh, we're so busy, we want a break, we want to get away. And this kind of is a getaway, it's a chance to read a book or go out on the balcony and get some fresh air. And actually, when I do step outside, that's what I'm seeing among the other guests as well. There are people who are outside just smoking and chilling, and then there are kids who just want to like wave and walk around, and it's a little bit more space to be in the ship if you don't want to just be in air conditioning the whole day. But overall, I think it's still day one. We don't know how long we're going to be here, and people are just trying to keep their spirits up and wait and see what comes next.
Right. Well, I definitely admire your optimism there, Clara. So thank you so much for the updates, Clara and Sam Joe. I've been speaking to the Straits Times' travel correspondent, Clara Locke, and multimedia correspondent, Yo Sam Joe.